Hey everybody, I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour, and it's a special day because I'm joined by someone I love very much. It is my little girl. How are you doing, kiddo?
Good.
Thank you for doing this. Okay, you're playing tennis this year. It's your first time ever. You having fun with it still?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, I want to do an exercise here. I want to do a hypothetical dad speech like we do before your matches, where I size things up and I give you a little bit of coaching that maybe you don't need at all, but it just makes me feel good to be able to talk you up and get you ready to go. So I'm going to do a little hypothetical pre-tennis match speech, and then I want to ask you one question about it. Sound good?
Yep.
Okay, here we go. Okay, little girl, I am looking at who you're going to be playing, and they seem like really nice girls. They seem like they're at about your level. I think that for this game, what you need to do is focus on just hitting in. Serve in, hit in, play slow and steady. I don't think you need to mash the ball or do anything crazy. And I think there's a good chance you'll come out ahead. But I'm looking further down the courts here, and I'm seeing several other teams that it's going to be different when you play them. They hit pretty hard. You're going to have to be a little bit more aggressive when you come up against them down the road. And that's just a good thing to bear in mind for this whole tennis thing for your whole life. The more you play, even on into adulthood, the more you're going to figure out that different players have different mentalities. They have different strengths and weaknesses. Some people even get really, really angry when you play, and you have to size up who you're on a court with and figure out what makes sense to do. And that'll serve you really well playing all the way into adulthood, even until you're old. Okay, hypothetical speech over. Here's my question for you. What time frame was I talking about in that hypothetical speech?
Well, you were talking about 3 different ones.
Okay.
The first one was the one that I'm going to play now.
Mm-hmm.
The second one is one that I'll play maybe later this season or maybe next season.
Okay.
And then the third one is just overall tennis.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. How did you know that?
That's what you said.
Because it's common sense, right? Because it's just intuitive to figure that out. Well, when we talk about Matthew chapter 10, which is the book in the Bible that we're talking about on the podcast right now, Jesus is giving a big speech to his disciples about what they're going to do next. Oh, we're talking about 3 different phases here. We have a right now, we have an in the near future phase, and then we're into big picture. This is just how things are. When you do this kind of thing, even how things are forever. So your intuition, little girl, right there is exactly the thing that we want to bottle up and take with us when we try to make sense of Matthew chapter 10. And I will not make you sit here for this whole thing. So thank you. And we are going to play tennis in a little bit, right?
Yes.
Excellent. We'll go hit it around. I love you, Squirt. Good job.
Thank you.
Sometimes I really do think I will come to a passage and I will overthink it a billion different ways, get confused by it, or maybe even frustrated by it at times. But basic human intuition is usually pretty effective for unraveling these things. And really what we're getting in Matthew chapter 10 is just exactly this. Jesus, as we've discussed at length, I know, sits down with 12 disciples and like, all right, here's what we're going to do. And remember, initially says, you're going to go not to the Gentiles, that would be the non-Jewish people, or the Samaritans, but you're going to go to the lost sheep of Israel. As you go, you're going to preach the message, the kingdom of heaven is near. You're going to be able to do miraculous stuff. You don't need to take anything with you. People should recognize you as ambassadors of me, the king. And when you go into a town, you should find people who recognize you as my bannermen, and you should be able to stay with them in their house. If nobody recognizes you for who you are and me for who I am, just move on and get on with it. And then he wraps up this first part of the missional discourse, Matthew chapter 10, this commissioning speech, by saying, I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves, therefore be as shrewd as snakes and as innocent as doves. And I would argue that there concludes the first chunk. And if we don't recognize that the first chunk of the speech is done right there, it gets really weird and confusing because he's on to the next thought starting in verse 17. So phase 1 is the match you're about to play right now. Those 2 girls are going out to play those 2 girls. Keep an eye out for these tendencies. This is what you need to do in that game. But if you can understand how it would be really bad parental coaching advice giving to be like, all right, those 2 girls you played that one time when you were a kid, every match ever is going to be just like that. Tennis isn't going to evolve. You're not going to evolve. Your opponents aren't going to evolve. Just keep doing the same thing forever, kid. If you know why that is horrible advice, then likewise, you know why Jesus can't stop there. He has to explain how the thing is going to unfold. So starting in verse 17, we get into the material about matches you're going to encounter down the road in the medium term. And here it goes like this, verse 17, be on your guard against men. They'll hand you over to the local councils and flog you in their synagogues. On my account, you'll be brought before governors and kings as witnesses to them and to the Gentiles. But when they arrest you, don't worry about what to say or how to say it. At that time, you'll be given what to say, for it won't be you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you. There we go. It's chunk 2. This is what tennis is going to look like for you all for a little while. This is what the matches are going to evolve into. So there is a next level here. You've got some tougher opponents coming down the pike. You're going to need to adjust your game and adjust your expectations. And indeed, as we discussed, Jesus was right about all of these things, and that's exactly how stuff went down in the medium term when we get into the book of Acts. But now we shift gears to the third part of the hypothetical pep talk that I'm giving the little girl about tennis. And this is just how tennis is. What to look for, what the dilemmas are that you'll run into, what the tensions and frictions are going to be, and where this heads as you get more competitive and into tougher things all the way on into adulthood. Verse 21, brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child. Children will rebel against their parents and have them put to death. All men will hate you because of me, but he who stands firm to the end will be preserved. When you're persecuted in one place, flee to another. I tell you the truth, you will not finish going through the cities of Israel before the Son of Man comes. And then after that, from verse 24 to the end of the chapter, which is verse, I just had it, 42, you get an exhortation, a separate block of thought designed to encourage the disciples and help them really get a sense of not just what their quest is about, but who they need to be while they are on this quest. So, very neatly, the first half of the missional discourse breaks down into a 3-part pep talk. You're going to have this match right now. These are the kind of matches you have coming up in the near future. And here, just in general, is what playing this sport long term is going to look like. And I'm sure at this point, some of you are like, oh my goodness, I get it. I got it like 30 seconds into your thing with your kid. When do we get on to the next thing? Okay, and maybe others of you are like, oh, okay, this is all coming into focus right now. But there really is a reason that we needed to take a day to work on this, because I don't think we're going to get the missional discourse right if we don't get this breakdown correct for 3 reasons. 1, because we just want to understand what the text says. I mean, these words are from Jesus. That means they're pretty important and pretty influential, and it's better to track with them fully and take our time than to just wing it and hope we got somewhere close. The second reason is because there are some mandates going on here, and we want to have clarity on whether those mandates are for the disciples or the disciples plus the next generation of disciples, or for everybody forever, or is every church in the world, should they be doing it just like this? What applies to you and me as we read it now, and what is descriptive of a unique moment in time? And breaking this down into these 3 parts helps us to clarify that. But the third reason it's important is because this is a timeline, and to understand it right, we have to understand when these things are going to unfold. And coming up here, we're going to spend a bunch of time on verse 23, where he says, I tell you the truth, you'll not finish going through the cities of Israel before the Son of Man comes. This feels like a passage, like a speech that tiptoes up toward eschatology. It is the study, the discussion, the subset of theology that deals with what's going to happen in the future and how time works out. And that stuff can get really murky. You got your people who look at the stuff that Jesus says and the Bible says about the end of time and how everything plays out, and there's like, I don't know, it's hard, I don't want to mess with it. I've seen that get weird for a lot of people. I resonate with that, I get it. Then you got other people who are like, I'm cracking the code, sucka. I'm going to dig so deep into this thing. I'm going to get out all of my red yarn and thumbtacks and newspaper clippings, and I am going to paste them all over the walls of this dimly lit basement, and I am going to get my eccentric hair all frazzled and messed up, and I am going to find the connection that no one else has ever found ever, and then I am going to go and boldly proclaim it on YouTube and podcasts and in blog posts that look like they're from 1997 and try to get everybody on board with my one unique singular read for how everything is going to turn out because I solved prophecy. If the text mandates that we think really hard about the yarn and the newspaper clippings and the thumbtacks, then fine, we'll go down that rabbit hole. If it doesn't mandate that, I want us to recognize that and glean from the passage what we're supposed to glean from it, just so that we're being fair to the thing and not running off into all of our own weird stuff, and particularly into the really weird stuff that tends to breed division and strange, goofy expressions of Christianity. So those are the reasons why I think it's really important that we take a whole day like we just did to break down this structure and realize that Jesus is giving a graduated pep talk that deals with the immediate, the midterm, and the long term, and that should get us closer to sorting out what he means with this whole, you're going to go through all the cities of Israel before the Son of Man comes. That was a lot, but I had fun. Hopefully you did too. Thank you for hanging out with me and for my wonderful little girl. And thank you, little girl, for being in here. She can't hear me. She's in the other room. We'll do more of this stuff tomorrow. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour. Let's do this again soon.